Hello and welcome back to Tuesday at Dobbs's. Apologies, I'm almost certain this is going to be the second Tuesday at Dobbs's in a row that's not actually coming out on Tuesday. It's Tuesday evening now, the DGR was on Sunday, and then yesterday I had to go and collect the car all the way up in Birmingham, so that took out the entire day yesterday. And then this morning I've had to fit a TV, an oven, and a washing machine. Because I truly believe, honestly, modern appliances now, and electronics in general, they're programmed to break after a certain amount of time. I truly believe it. We've been in this flat for coming up to 10 years. I bought everything brand new, and it cannot be a coincidence that within a 3-week period of each other, the TV, the oven, and the washing machine have all broken. I was chatting to a few friends of mine at the weekend about this. One of them said exactly the same thing. He moved in to a new build development and they were all in houses, and after 3 years his oven broke. He went over and spoke to his neighbour. 5 days before my friend's oven broke, his neighbour's oven broke. These are all programmed to break now because it's just a money-making ploy for these companies that you're going to have to replace your products every 3 to 10 years. My parents, they would often tell me that they had a fridge, for example, that they'd had for 40 years, and it was so reliable. When they sold their house 3 years ago, they ended up just leaving it in the garage. But this fridge spent 20 years of its 40-year life in an asbestos-roofed garage with so many holes in it. The inside of the garage was the same temperature as the outside. So through freezing cold temperatures up to 35 degrees, everything in between, never missed a beat, and they bought it from Iceland, a budget supermarket. Nowadays, you're buying, or I'm stupid enough to buy premium products, and they're still breaking. Rant over. Anyway, I bought a washing machine, put it in the cupboard, ripped all the packaging off, chucked the packaging in the bin, found out that the washing machine is 4 centimeters deeper than my old one, and now the laundry cupboard door doesn't close. Right, let's get down to it before I carry on ranting too much. Tommaso from last week wanting to go over to Turkey to up with his partner, but his insurance company won't even allow him to pay extra to head over and be fully insured going to Turkey. Only one person has come back to me. The only recommendation, Tommaso, I've got is Tor Insure. It's a German company and they specialize in tour insurance, but they've got a very specific part on the website for motorcycle tour insurance, specifically in Turkey. Tommaso, if you get in touch with them, you need to tell them in no uncertain terms they need to get out of 1998 and update themselves to 2024, because it says, inexplicably, don't email over your completed insurance form, either send it or fax it. What kind of company won't allow you to complete an online form? It makes no sense at all. But at the very least, they are transparent. If you need third-party liability insurance for a motorcycle trip in Turkey, they have lots of different periods, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, etc. Let's say you're going for 1 month, and it's 229 euros, which I think is fairly reasonable considering they cover you for a total of £2.5 million. So Tommaso, that comes recommended. Let me know how you get on. On now to Dale, who's just got back from a road trip on his Moto Guzzi V7 all the way over to Iceland. Have a listen to this, pictures included. Freddie, I'm back from Iceland after 19 days on the road. My main goal was to go all the way around the ring road, which I did, and take in as many sights as I could, and do it on my 2019 Moto Guzzi V7. I took the Channel Tunnel and headed over to Denmark. Over 2 days via France, Belgium, Netherlands and Germany, then a 3-day ferry. I had no idea it was that long. A 3-day ferry to Iceland via the Faroe Islands. That explains it. What a trip. And then 8 full days in Iceland, getting the ferry back on the 9th day. It's been a fantastic journey and experience, such a beautiful place, and May is definitely a challenge with the weather. Dale, I was looking through this. You were riding through snowy conditions, or at least areas with snow still on the ground. Challenge with the weather, but worth it for the quiet roads. I've done a mix of camping, hostel, and Airbnbs. It's not cheap, but definitely worth it, and my Guzzi was just right for the job. I covered 3,521 comfortable, trouble-free, stunning miles. You really don't need an adventure bike to have an adventure, just a bike you're comfortable on. Dale, fantastic. And I completely agree on the comfort side, but what an unbelievable trip that was. I thought you were brave going off in May, and it looks like there were definitely some very, very cold bits. But Dale, you've inspired me. Moving over now to a similarly cold part of the world, over to Sweden. Freddie, Daniel here from Sweden. I'm not sure my bike meets up to the standards of the podcast since it's not a real motorcycle. Daniel, it's perfect. My bike's a 1960s, who's heard of this? Pictures included Husqvarna Cornette 50cc from the actual weapons factory in the city of Husqvarna, Sweden. I'm embarrassed here. I didn't actually realise Husqvarna was the name of a city in Sweden. So it's as simple as that. That's where the name Husqvarna came from. I really should have known that. Continuing, I got it from my brothers as a wedding gift a couple of years back, quite bruised up, and I've been restoring it bit by bit to at least a decent standard, in my opinion. I then forced my brothers to buy their own classic mopeds, and now we're enjoying them together. We're actually taking them on a little road trip next week on Tuesday, which will be today, funnily enough, I think. Taking them on Tuesday onto the ferry from Gothenburg to Kiel in Germany. We'll then be riding our bikes from Kiel through Denmark and back through Gothenburg again. Roughly 600 kilometers, wish us luck. 600 kilometers on this 50cc Cornette. I've looked into this. I believe the Cornette is 0.8 horsepower. And that is about 60 years ago. So let's just say it's lost about 30% of its horsepower. We have to assume it's about 0.6 horsepower. Let's just round it to half a horsepower. So this is another interesting thing. Husqvarna were founded in 1689 for firearms manufacturing, but they shut down and sold the firearms manufacturing part of the business in 1960. So this bike would have been made in the exact transitional period when Husqvarna was selling off the firearms branch of the business, because the Cornette was made between 1959 and 1962. So this little Cornette here from Daniel, it's going to be about 62 to 65 years old. I mean, anything over 30 miles on one of these will seem like a gigantic adventure. Daniel, thank you so much for sending that over. I've never come across those before. You're going to need it. Good luck. On to Davide, a Scottish Neapolitan. Davide, who had failed his, if I remember, his CBT a couple of times, and then he went over to do his Mod 1 after passing his CBT, and he failed his Mod 1. And this is quite an inspiring story, because not everyone is immediately some kind of riding god. It takes people longer than others. I failed my test too as well first time. But Davide, I'm delighted to pass on, has some good news. Dear Freddie and Monica, I wanted to send you a follow-up email to tell you the end of my story as a learner rider. After failing Mod 2, or after failing Mod 1 twice, I passed the final part of my test, Mod 2, and I finally got my license. Right after passing Mod 1, inspired by your words, I started looking for a Harley Sportster within my budget, but during my search, a bike popped up in my feed that had me starstruck. It was everything I'd been looking for in a bike. An older, carburetted lump of iron and bad taste that stole my heart and mind. So I contacted the dealership that had it down in England and, hey presto, the bike was mine. Fast forward 23 days later, today it's finally been delivered to me in Scotland. Freddie and Monica, allow me to introduce my new to me, drum roll. This is a stunner, Davide. Kawasaki VN800, and here's the key, classic 2006 model. The bike's in great condition for its age. In fact, if I can put this YouTube video and link it in here, I will, because it sounds just like a Harley. It's a beautiful sounding bike. It sounds and feels amazing. It's still not the Harley I've been dreaming of for so long, but it makes me incredibly happy nonetheless. Pictures attached and a link here with a video clip of the bike in action. And that's from Davide. The key to this is typing in classic. So type in Kawasaki VN800 classic into your search, and that will bring up this really, really nice retro styled VN. That's the variant. They made them from 1996 until about 2006, to the best of my knowledge. 805cc and 54 horsepower. And if you're interested in one of these, I found one. Facebook Marketplace. You know, this is so apt. This is just the first one I saw that I thought, yeah, this is good. 96 model, so the first year it came out. £2,700. Looks brilliant with the 8 bars and that classic front mudguard that just sweeps off. Proper 1960s style. And the gentleman here selling it, in fact, I don't know it's a gentleman. The person here selling it says, I'm selling my beloved Kawasaki Vulcan 800 Classic. Me and this bike have been through a lot together. I've had it for 3 years. The reason I'm selling it, Davide, prepare yourself, is because I want to upgrade to a Harley Davidson. Davide, I could see you doing that in a few years, I'm sure. But massive, massive congrats. It's a beautiful bike. And more importantly, congratulations on passing. On now to Rupert. Pictures included. Freddie thought he may be interested in my ride around South Africa and Namibia. I have, over the years, ridden in most countries around the world, and these two are my favourite by far. I'm very lucky to keep bikes here and there, and at my South Africa house, I keep a KTM 1190 Adventure R and also an old and fickle KTM 690 Rally. A few pictures of my 2-week expedition in which I free camped in the deserts and on the beaches. That's brilliant. Next stop is going to be a more leisurely ride in June and July across France and the Pyrenees and my trusty and much loved Royal Enfield. One life and all that. Rupert. Brilliant trip, Rupert. Brilliant trip. I love the picture. At night, bike parked up, tent behind, boots just sitting on the mirrors. Now on to James, who has been at Easy Rider Tenerife to pick up some bikes. Freddie, I was inspired to have a family holiday, combined with a couple of days with my best mate to Tenerife. We rented a bobber and a Guzzi for a few days from Easy Rider Tenerife, and what an experience. That's from James. I had to have a look at this, I couldn't believe it. You can now pick up a Triumph bobber on Auto Trader from a dealership for £6,500. That's getting very, very difficult to ignore. 6.5k for such a good bike, a dream level bike, is really good value. James, thank you. And stunning pics just with the islands in the background. On now to Jason from Melbourne, Australia. Moto Guzzis are the quintessential expression of motorcycling as a philosophical outlook and lifestyle, as an event, as a tactile connection to living in the moment. They're not technological wonders, nor are they the sometimes austere and emotionally remote machines that more perfect bikes are. No, they somehow imbue a sense of life on a mechanical device. More than the sum of their parts? Yes, because those parts include more than just the steel and materials of the bike itself. I bought this used 2023 evocative. Tried doing an Italian pronunciation there. Let's call it evocative. That was a former press fleet bike of the Australian importer. It's done 2,800 kilometers when I bought it, and a few unfortunate scuffs and scars to show that it has indeed been put through some paces by someone, somewhere. And that's Jason in Melbourne. Everyone I speak to, this is one of the bikes that maybe a lot of people who've never ridden it don't give it credit for. Every single owner I've ever spoken to about a Moto Guzzi V85 TT says it's a revelation. It's a fantastic bike, it's reliable, it's easy to live with, it's rugged, it's tough, it's comfortable on the motorway, it's comfortable and capable off-roading. You can stack it up with panniers, you can commute on it, it's beautiful, it's characterful. Incredible write-ups all the time from their owners that. Jason, thank you. On now to James. This is in response to last week when I did the £2,000 budget bikes to mile munch on. From James. Woohoo! The adrenaline and excitement of looking for parts for a 25-year-old Euro bike or for an old mechanic to work on it. Adolf then says, if it's 20 years old and costs $2,000 less, then it's crap. But can also buy lottery tickets and hope to win too. Mark continues, older bikes can be excellent, but bear in mind, Tuesday at Dobbs a few months back discussed expenses of older bikes. For example, the Honda XL 1000 Varadero mentioned in last week's video. I own one, talking about Mark. I truly love it, but it's cost me a ransom to keep it roadworthy. Some bits, for example, the exhaust manifold, are no longer available and cost over £1,000. Custom building a replacement. Mark, this is the point you've highlighted, the most painful point about older bikes, because, and I'm sure you don't mind me saying, a Honda XL 1000 Varadero is not specifically a premium bike. It's a well-priced, very capable bike. So to have to spend £1,000 on a part that should never have been that expensive just to keep it on the road is a really tough pill to swallow. It's one thing doing it on a bit of Italian exotica like a Ducati or something, but it's another thing having to do it on a bike that probably isn't going to be worth much more than that £1,000. So it's a very good point you make. Volt 86, I'll just carry on a bit more, because this is interesting. Volt 8684 says also, and this is extremely important, bear this in mind, also I couldn't get breakdown insurance in Europe for my FJ 1200 1987. It's a Yamaha FJ 1200. See, this is another problem. If you're going to be touring, you may have to tour and accept that you can't get breakdown cover for older vehicles. On now to Kim. Freddie, can you ask your viewers who go touring on these old sub £2,000 motorbikes to follow up after their vacations? We would like to learn if there were any hardships with the older motorcycles that people take on longer trips. Christopher, New York City. Chris, I'm going to just jump the gun here because two people coincidentally actually mentioned the trips they went on in the comments section last week. Let me read these out. Coming in from T-Chub. Freddie, I've got a 1997 NTV 650 that I rode to the Black Sea. I just put a Puig screen on it, and I had to leave it there in a barn for 3 years due to COVID. I got back on it and off I went as if it had been used every day. That's a brilliant story. And Garmit61 said, the best engine of any bike I've ever owned was a Rotax 990V twin. A lot of people are saying this. Have a Google of this if you're interested in a very tough engine. So Rotax 990V twin. The Aprilia Falco that had that engine cost me £2,750, and I toured Germany, France, and all over the UK. The only fault I had with it was the fuel pump. It was an amazing bike, and when I part exchanged it 6 years later, I got £1,000 for it. Ultra reliable, very fast, very agile, and although it was on the sporty side of sports tourer, it was wonderful. You cannot go wrong with an Aprilia and a Rotax engine. Let's have a look at this. Maybe I've been wrong all this time. Let's take a look. No hassle, no reliability issues, no parts issues. Buying new. Let's see what it's really like. I'm going to take two fairly sensible bikes here. If we're talking about mile munching, let's have a look at this. Suzuki V-Strom 1050 DE, brand new from Suzuki, £14,000. It's got 106 horsepower, it's V-twin. It's got everything under the sun, from traction control to intelligent riding systems. I could go on and on. Half of the stuff is so complex, it's almost meaningless, but this has every technological aid you could possibly imagine. It's got a 3-year warranty from Suzuki, and if you get it serviced at Suzuki, that 3-year warranty can turn into a 7-year warranty. How much is it though? If I want all of this stress-free living, well, I can get for 34 months, so just under 3 years of payments and a £1,000 deposit. So I pay £1,000, I then have 34 payments of £388, making a total that I have to pay back of £14,982. So the interest over a 3-year term is under £1,000. I think that's extremely reasonable. And you get a brand new bike with just £1,000 deposit for £388 a month. And at the end of the term, you own it outright in its entirety. That's very reasonable. But I'm going to go what I perceive to be, and this will divide opinion a bit, but I'm going to go one better than that. One better may not be the right word, but I just love the looks of this bike. It is the Aprilia Touareg 660. This is a bike that came out 2 years ago, and I think it's one of the best looking adventure bikes that is on the market right now. I think it's got that beautiful nostalgic air of 1980s, almost Dakar style races. The color combination is brilliant. It's stripped back. It's a very, very minimal styled bike. It's got those beautiful, simple, classy Italian lines. It's understated, but the lines are just perfect to make it an aesthetically pleasing bike. Big fan of these. I've seen them in the flesh and they look just as good. It's got 79 horsepower, so perfect. It's 204 kilos, so okay. And currently they're on sale across the board in the UK for £9,850. They've got a 2-year extendable warranty, and have a listen to this from MCN. I really like this wording. And just as you thought the 1980s were out of icons, Aprilia have joined the party with the reincarnated Touareg. Named for the, I didn't know this, named for the indigenous Saharan nomads. I mean, that's brilliant in itself. The original Touareg was launched in 1985 and spewed a 5-strong family of models that remained in production until 1994. And now, the Desert Racer is back, featuring the 659cc parallel twin of the manufacturer's recently launched Aprilia RS660 and also the Aprilia Tuono 660. So that means that the engine, of course, being in 3 different bikes, parts availability is going to be infinitely better in years to come, because the more models that you can put an engine in or different parts in means that from a longevity point of view for a bike, you're going to be laughing for years to come. The more niche a bike is, the more niche an engine is, and the fewer models that it's in means that you are going to be struggling when a bike gets to 15, 20 years old. So that is good news. I found that if I can do finance for myself, I get a decent deal with a bank that I bank with, NatWest. So they'll give me a 6.6% APR with £1,000 deposit. And I thought, look, I like this bike, Aprilia Touareg. This would be a long-term bike. This would be a keeper. So if it is a bike I'm planning to keep, I'm not worried about paying off over 3 years. I'm happy to spread it to 5 years because this is a bike that I have no interest in selling. So spread it over a 5-year period with a £1,000 deposit, and all you're paying every month is £172. And after 5 years, it's paid off in its entirety. I think that is hugely exciting to get a seriously good looking, capable bike that can do everything from commuting to desert racing. £172 a month. I'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this week's episode. Have a brilliant week all. See you all in the next one.